Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Infinite Me, where every day we're talking about a topic in the moment, all to do with infinite living and reminding ourselves that we're already infinite. We don't have to wake up to our powers or ascend to them, that we've already got them. We've probably just forgotten who we truly are. So, as we said, every day showing up here to talk about something, an in-depth kind of, probably a very different way of looking at consciousness topics that everybody else is talking about at the moment. So I am Mandy, and over there is Nat.
Hi, Sid.
Yes, we are sisters. Yes. So yesterday we spoke about the topic of self-love, and which is a very big topic that gets talked about a lot in spiritual circles, and how we all need to come from that space of having love for ourselves, and how a lot of us struggle with that concept of what that actually means. And so the conclusion we came to in that talk was that it's a bit of a bullshit topic. I think not topic, concept in the concept from the point of view that you're already infinite. Like if we're already coming, well, our true state is love. Like we are an infinite part of consciousness. So we already are love. So to say that we don't have self-love or we don't love ourselves is actually the ego kind of talking. It's a very sort of arrogant sort of space of keeping that separation going, if you like, by saying we don't have love for ourselves. So that's the talk we did all about that yesterday, and what that journey to self-love looks like, if you like. So check that conversation out. Yes. So every day to come up with our topic, we got a little bag of topics that we've put into here, and we're calling it the Infinite Lucky Dip. So the idea is that we pick out a topic right now in the moment, and that's what we talk about for the day. So
hopefully we know something about.
Yes. Yesterday we didn't know who wrote the topic, so we couldn't. Sometimes usually the topics are sparked by something that we've been speaking about either offline or something that's gone on in our life, that day or something. So, but sometimes we've written them a couple of weeks ago and we don't quite remember.
Can't remember the context.
What the topic was about. So anyway,
we'll have to make it up as we go along. No.
Well, basically, it is in the moment and just channeling
We
in
sort of
the present moment. So.
Hopefully open up enough space that something comes through about what it's about.
All right, this is an interesting one. I wrote this one, so I have to remember.
Good. You start.
So the topic is choosing to live fully versus avoiding death.
Wow. There's a topic for a Saturday.
So
choosing to live fully versus avoiding death.
Yes. And I'm trying to think
what the context of this was.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of how this topic came about, whether I read it somewhere or somebody else was doing a conversation about it. But the idea was basically that the choosing to living fully is coming from this infinite space that we've all of our conversations, we talk about this, about we are, that coming from that knowing that we are an infinite being. We're here in a human body to sort of express ourselves in our own individuated unique way. And so the idea of living fully is tuning into that knowingness that's coming through you, that feeling that's moving through you, and acting on that so that you're fully alive in the moment, like you're doing what's true for you. Versus avoiding death was the idea that when the ego is kind of running you, you're doing everything to get an outcome all the time. So it's always about that. Trying to get acceptance or approval, or where it said avoiding death, it's like the ego not wanting to die. So you're doing everything the ego is doing everything that it can to stay alive in your life. So it keeps the stories going, and you keep looping in the mental patterns and the habits and the thought patterns and all those different things. So I thought that was kind of an interesting topic, just from that angle of it really shifts the perspective of how you operate in your life when you're choosing to fully show up as what's true for you, regardless of the outside circumstances or opinions of others, or versus that, thinking that you have to try and get somewhere to get some kind of success, to achieve something so that you've made something out of your life, that kind of a concept. That's sort of the context from memory.
No, that makes sense. what was coming up for me then when you said about avoiding death is, I guess, the ultimate fear of the ego is death, like physical death.
Yeah.
So a lot of people sort of could be going through their life type thing, almost waiting to die. Like that's what it sort of seems like, in that you never take a step out of your comfort zone or to do anything. Like you're never truly living and letting it fly type thing. It's almost like you're so fearful of what might happen. And I guess this does begin with the context of what you're talking about.
Like you put things on hold sometimes because you think, oh, one day when this circumstances work out, then I'll get to that thing that I really love to do.
So sort of like, well, in effect, you're almost waiting to just die, like you're just marching time here, like why are you even here? So so I guess it does work in, and some of that could be a physical. I know I've had that. I think because I've had so many probably accidents as a kid and stuff like that. Like I was quite accident prone, and I've been through a fair bit of physical pain in my life at different times. So it's sort of like I found myself pulling quite reserved and quite pulling back on the physical sense of going and doing stuff. And yeah, so that's been coming up quite a bit lately as I've got older. So it's sort of quite interesting. As before, I would sort of just, well, you know, go canyoning and rock climbing and like do so many different things, lots of stuff in the police and all that sort of stuff. So, but yeah, I did get to that point where I was like, oh, I'm actually really pulling back on the physical side here now because of this fear of like falling or some sort of death, like perceiving like it's an injury or death type thing, like in a physical sense. I was like, oh, wow, like that was interesting. So I guess that sort of is just another form of an ego game of not fully living. That's sort of what it came down to.
Yeah, I think also that the saying like putting things on hold until the circumstances are right, which they never usually are. You find that you never get everything, all your ducks in a row. Like it just never works that way. Very rarely does it work that way anyway. So we kind of tend to put things on the shelf until the time is right, which and then oftentimes people get to the end of their life and then they kind of have this list of regrets of things that they wish they had done, but just never sort of stepped out of their comfort zone, like you said, or just took the leap regardless of what was going to happen and whatever their fears were at the time, but didn't actually step into that. So
I think it's a pretty common one though, isn't it? Because when you look at the process of creation, like we've talked about, is that you get an inspired thought come through about, say, creating this project type thing, and it feels really true for you, and it's like, oh, okay, I'll do that now, sort of thing. That I'm going to head in that direction, but then you don't get all the steps in front of you, and so it's sort of like, unless I get the big picture, I can't really do this because I can't see how it's all going to fit together. And,
it's true.
And it takes a lot of discipline and a lot of, even I feel like I'm still working through that in terms of this project too. You feel like you're missing pieces of the puzzle. And that's sort of like, well, we're sort of heading in that direction, but I really can't see like how do I put that together right now, sort of thing. So it's sort of to keep asking yourself, like, what have I got now that's available to me that we do know what is definite about this, and can we take action on that? But because we don't have that, and I guess there's just so little training in this, like for want of a better term, like that so few people realize how the creative process works, that we're all still waiting for the bigger picture type thing and for all the ducks to come in a row before we do anything. And it's like, it actually just doesn't work that way. It's never worked that way, and it never will. Because otherwise you'd be totally overwhelmed. Like the infinite knows that in your human self you can't have the bigger picture too much. You might get glimpses of it and you might get an overall feeling. That's generally sort of how I tend to see it, is an overall feeling of a direction of that something is heading in. But you don't get the details and all the steps and all that sort of stuff because you'd be so overwhelmed about how to create something. So it's sort of, unless you understand that process, you can see why people get held back, because I was doing the same thing. It's like,
definitely.
You can't really make a start. So in actual fact, it's sort of putting life on hold almost, because you don't know that process.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think the ego wants to know, as you've just been saying, like, and it's like that, you know, we've been talking about in lots of our different talks, it always comes back to the same kind of topic, is that if we haven't spent the time creating the inner space to actually tune into what is actually true for us, then it's very hard to hear that. Like, we just have the monkey mind of the ego going, and so we don't actually follow those things that we truly love because of all the stories that we do have around it. Like you've just said as well, that's part of the story too, but we can't see the whole picture, so therefore I just won't start, or I won't keep going. You know, I need to have everything lined up first, or I have to have the money in place first, or I need to have permission first, or, you know, all the different things we tell ourselves. But but even then, when we do have a true feeling, like we have spent some time sort of becoming present and creating more space and unhooking from all the stories, even we might hear that true thing to do, but then the ego can still come in and hijack it, and kind of takes us down that path, and then into the how of things, how something's got to unfold. So we then might put our focus on, okay, well, I've got to create the money first, and we go into the strategy of creating that, and therefore we just get taken offline. So that's the thing, you have to be very aware of your mind patterns that are going on. Like, you have to pull yourself up on the ego stuff, because it's so under the radar half the time that we're not even aware that it's
you're in it before you realize. It's like
happening.
Back down that pathway again, like down that rabbit hole yet again.
Yeah, that's why it's so important to spend the time, like we've been talking about the last couple of days in particular, about putting the time and effort into creating that inner space. So putting the time into being present, or meditating, or whatever that looks like, to bring yourself into that place, so that it becomes more of a knowing of yourself as the infinite being, you know, the infinite consciousness that's moving everything. And then you can start to tune in a lot more to what's actually true for you, and come from that space. So to me, that's kind of definitely that fully living, when you're coming from that space. Like, you feel alive when you're coming from that space, that expansive space. Whereas a lot of the time, if we, you know, not that we don't have moments of kind of feeling, you know, alive, different things that we do in our life, if we are sort of being run a bit more by the ego, but they're usually a lot more limited and fleeting, if you like. But it's kind of like we go after something, we think it might give us a certain feeling, only to sort of find out that, oh, that didn't last very long, and you're looking for the next thing now, the next hit of energy, if you like. Sometimes, like, you're following you're trying to follow breadcrumbs sometimes to get that next little hit, rather than sort of having this as a sustained kind of way of being excited about your life all the time. Like, and even it doesn't have to be that you're actually outside doing exciting things. It could be just mundane things as well, but it's the consciousness that we bring to those things as well, that we get to choose to do those things in the moment because they feel true for us. You know, brings us excitement. So
I think that's a good point, is you need to define what does alive mean in the first place, like really alive. And getting those hits, it's almost like a drug, isn't it? Like, you know, if I just do this, and they are under the radar, you don't realize it's so subconscious that you're doing different things for different agendas of money, acceptance, more power, and, you know, security is definitely a really big one, because it's such a driver for the human self that we need to feel secure. So that definitely is one that lies under the surface of things, and it's so freaking subtle that, you know, it can escape you so many times, where you really feel like you are truly doing what you love, and then it goes along for a little bit, and then you go, I was just doing it to feel secure. Like I needed that baseline of money. Like that's one that we've fallen for many, many times. Having that, can we just have a baseline of money come in every month to feel secure? And then that opens up creativity, and it opens up what we love and all that sort of stuff. And that's been a big belief pattern of ours for a long time. And I'd say it was probably still there to some degree, that both of us would love to have that baseline level of income, because we just haven't had that for years. You know, we work for ourselves. So when you do that, and you're that more entrepreneurial type thing, and you don't have a job, then suddenly that becomes really important in your game. So it's really difficult to operate in a space of what's true for you in every moment when you have just that buzzing thing of finances sitting there the whole time going, so will I be able to eat this month? Like, it's like, can we get our next flight? You know, for us, can we get our next flights? Can we get to the next house? Can we eat again? Like, it's difficult to really stay in that infinite zone and in that feeling alive in that your creativity. When it keeps pulling you, it feels like it keeps pulling you off track and stuff like that, to get back into the human game and to get that taken care of first. So it's tough. Like, it's real tough.
Which is what happens, is like you're starting with the true feeling, but then the ego comes in and hijacks the story. So it's, you know, you start off with saying, I'm going to do what I love, and you find something that is absolutely true for you to do, but then the ego sort of starts going, oh, how's that going now? Like, are we making money yet? Are we, I thought this was going to be the thing. I thought this was, you know, like, it's all those stories that we start. So as soon as we start putting our attention on that and buying into that story, like, we're completely off track by that stage, and we can't keep, we already feel separate at that point. So we have to keep bringing our attention back to that true state, and only do things from that true state, which seems really, like, to the outside world, to most people, that's going to seem really like flaky or non-committal or something like that, because you might change your mind about something, or you go down a path and then you have to pull yourself back again. And so you have to kind of you have to kind of stay out of those stories as much as you can. Like, that's the challenge, I guess, is of staying committed to that path of waking up. It does take focus and commitment and energy and time, like, to do that, as we've been talking about. So I heard something just the other day, which wasn't a new thing I've heard, but it was just kind of landed differently. It was around this idea that we think that we've got unlimited time in life, and that money is limited, but it's actually completely the other way around. Like, money is actually infinite and time is actually limited. Like, in the human game, it is actually limited. You know, we are going to die one day. So in our human game, it's a construct, obviously, like, it's, you know, from the infinite perspective, there is no time, but in our human reality, we do have time, and we age, and we will die one day. So time is limited in this game, whereas money is infinite. Like, there is no end to money and what we can create, but we think it's the other way around, and we get so stuck. When I heard that, I do think that's so true as well. Like, I think I've definitely from that space too, thinking, oh yeah, I've got time to get this idea off the ground. I've got, you know, next 5-10 years go past and you haven't actually moved on an idea. Like, I've looked back on
a week goes past, like, it doesn't even have to be that much time. Like, it's there's another week gone. Right.
But I've literally read back on you know, not that I keep a journal, I don't really keep a journal consistently, but I've written notes at times just on, like, you know, in the flow kind of consciousness stream of writing, and then I've gone back and found something in a notebook from 5 or 10 years earlier, and it was like the same idea that I've been thinking about, you know, I just haven't actually moved on that idea. So it's just sort of shows you sometimes how much time passes without actually moving on what you know feels true for you. But for some reason, I had all these stories in the way of why I could, you know, move on some of these ideas, and some of them are coming now into this project, you know, with Nat and I, that we're working on here in the Infinite Me. So it's just interesting, but, like, I let the ego story hold me back for so long, like, and I was getting so frustrated with it too. So it was kind of like I was aware that it was there, but I still wasn't letting it go. Like, there was still some pull to stay in that story, because getting something out of the story, obviously, like, it's kind of still feeling that separation, if you like, hadn't sort of fully integrated with that knowingness of being an infinite being. And that's still a process. Like, that's still definitely like, do I come from that space all the time? No, like, it's kind of, it's getting more and more that way. And as I think Nat was speaking about yesterday, like, just the more we keep bringing our attention back to that, even just us doing these talks for the last 2 months has been a big part of that too, just actually coming from this space and having to keep pulling ourselves back into that space and reminding ourselves, and then you go down a bit of a path and then realize you've gone off track again with the ego, and just bringing more and more awareness to what's actually going on. And then starting to move on the ideas a bit more now, and the energy's more flowing, and starting to feel what's more true. And so it is a process, but it's doable. We can all do it. We just need to shift shift our focus from the stories to the living infinitely.
I think that's it, isn't it? It really is an attitude change, I guess, or a shift in focus, as you say, in terms of, am I really going to be purposely and consciously heading towards creation and creating what I want, so therefore feeling alive, or am I just going to get sucked into the same old, which is that default pattern? So we did talk about this in another live. So if this topic interests you, then go back and have a look at that. But it was really about, you're always creating in every single moment. So you either are going to consciously create what you want, or you're going to create by default. But either way, you're going to be creating. So you choose which one you want in every moment. So, and to me, this topic really comes down to that exact concept of, if you want to feel alive, then go and create what you want, because that's what makes you feel alive.
Yes.
Because then you're in pure creation. You're creating for the sake of creating. You're not because you're trying to get an outcome to something. It actually, you're enjoying the process, enjoying the journey of actually just creating.
Yeah.
And it's fun for you. And so that does make you come alive, because that's who you are. You're creating every moment. So, or, you're going to sit there and just not actually, and you've talked about this before, like different people that are in your sphere that are just doing the same old. In fact, they're so doing the same old, they didn't even realize that there is a position outside of that story. And they're so sucked into that they're not even questioning anything. Like questioning, is there more to this outside of what I'm doing right now? Could there be something else that I could be doing? And I guess that at its sharpest point type thing is that, like, where you're not even questioning the same old every day. At least, hopefully, the people watching this right now, that's the reason you're here, is because there is at least some questioning going on, that there's got to be more to the story right now. So that's awesome. Like, that's definitely the path we all need to be on, is questioning everything.
Yes.
Because it leads us to the whole creation process. We keep asking. I do remember John Demartini saying this: it's the quality of your life will come down to the quality of the questions that you actually ask yourself.
Yes.
And I totally agree with that.
Yeah, definitely.
It's not asking the how's this going to happen? How's that going to happen?
Or why is this happening to me?
Why? Why am I being? So then you're a victim. So it's asking those really conscious questions of, what else can I do? What could be more expensive right now?
Yes.
Those sorts of questions will definitely get you out of this path and onto this path of feeling alive again. And doing things for no reason. I think that's, I know we've got a couple of comments here. I'll bring them on in a tick. But what was coming up and sparking for me was that concept of for no reason.
Yeah.
Because the infinite has no reason for anything.
Yeah.
It just does it. Because that's the expression that it wanted to come in right in that moment. There's no reason for anything. There's no outcomes trying to get. There's no agendas. To some degree, maybe it doesn't know what the outcome's going to be either. Maybe your infinite self doesn't know what the outcome's going to be. So it's just having this little experiment of ideas just to see what unfolds, just as much as you in your human form are doing that. So it's sort of quite interesting. And you can bring this concept into anything, like even to your partner. It's like, why do you love your partner? For no reason would be the most infinite thing that you could actually say.
Yeah,
because then it's
unconditional love space. Yeah,
close unconditional love as you're going to get in the human form. It's like, I don't love them because they make me dinner, because they have a great job, because they finance the family, they look after the kids really well. Like, none of that stuff. That's all human story bullshit stuff.
Yeah.
The most honest thing you can say is, I love you for no reason, because I just love you.
Yeah, so I just do. I just have a knowingness that I do. Like, you don't have to know why that is. Like, and yes, you could back it up with some of the stuff that you just said, like, oh, well, they're a really good father, or they help around the house, or they do this, that type of thing. But that just supports that love that you already have. But at the core of it, as you said, it is just that unconditional knowingness that I just do. Like, I just love them. Like, you can't explain it half the time of what that feeling actually is.
Yeah. And I think that goes for anything, like any of the projects you might be doing or stuff you might be interested in. It's sort of like, I'm just doing it because I'm just doing it. Like, I don't know. Why am I doing infinite me stuff? Because I don't know. Because it just, every day I get up, we don't always do it.
Feels true.
sort of in the first moment I get up in the morning, but I always know we're going to have these conversations because that's what I do. Like,
Yes.
we're now at 2 months today. Happy anniversary. But yeah, that's it's sort of that concept of, well, there is no reason for it. It's just that's just what we do.
It feels true to do it, so while it feels true, we'll keep doing it. Yeah. So.
Yeah, and I think when you can come from that space, and I can only just recall at where I have come from that space in creating a product before. So around the house sitting niche, we created the House Sitting Academy, and at the time that we created that, it created itself very quickly. Like, it only took a couple of months to sort of put it together and stuff like that. And in terms of sort of creating a big product, that's, you know, not too bad.
Yes.
But the reason for doing that, purely from my perspective, I can't speak for Jodie's perspective, was because that's what felt right in the moment. So whenever we got outside world going, oh, why did you create the House Sitting Academy? You shouldn't have done that. Like, and we did. We got some drill back on it from people in the house sitting industry that sort of said, you know, you're trying to formalize the house sitting industry now and shouldn't be doing that and blah, blah, blah. And, you know, house sitting is not rocket science, so why would anyone buy this course, blah, blah, blah. So I got a lot of pushback. And I just sat there and I went, I actually don't give a shit what you think about this, because I didn't do it for you. I did it for me.
Yeah.
I wanted to create this product. And if someone buys it, awesome. And if they don't, you know what, I actually don't really care. From an ego standpoint, did I care? Yeah, of course I did. Like, I wanted to make money from it, so I could finance our food. But did I actually really care at the end of the day? And I was like, no, actually I don't. I actually was really honestly unattached to it, because it came from that space of, I did it because I wanted to do it. I did it for me. I did it for no reason. And I feel that when you can come from that space and you create from that space, and the outside world just does not matter anymore. Yeah. But because you come from that space and there's no attachment to it, that's what attracts people to it. That's the stupid thing about it, is that that energy permeates that particular product or that relationship or however you approach that thing. Yeah. And suddenly people become attracted to that because it's the infinite. It's been created in the infinite, and everyone is trying to get to that space. Yeah. That is it, not because they like the product. That's how it will come across in the storyline, but because that it holds the energy of the infinite. And so people are naturally going to be drawn to that because that's who they are. Yeah. It comes from a space of love. Yeah.
And then I mean, that's the true definition, I guess, of that. Do what you love. That's what it actually means, is moving from that space of what's true for you, regardless of the outcome, regardless of how it's going to be received, regardless of how much money you will or won't make from it. It's got nothing to do with that. But then, you know, as we were just saying before, the ego comes in and hijacks it. As soon as we start making it about the money, we're screwed. Like, we kind of fall off the track. And it doesn't mean you won't make money from it, but the flow of it just kind of completely shifts. And if you get really focused on that, then sometimes you do screw yourself over and you don't make any money from something, because it's almost like it's trying to wake you up to the fact that you've taken something that was true and you've now sort of, you know, cannibalized it, if you like, and something else. Like, you know, the ego's kind of come in and just hijack the whole thing and takes you off track. So that's where you have to be so aware of, like, keep checking in about, why am I actually doing this thing? And if you can't honestly say you're doing it from love, then you should just stop then and there. Like, that's the quickest way, if you like, to kind of reassess where you are and redirect, you know, course correct on back to doing what you love. And if you can't love that thing right now, then you need to create more space for it. That's the whole thing, is just that we don't have enough space sometimes for these things to take off, because the ego just comes in and hijacks the whole thing, as we said. And like, if there isn't enough space that you've created, like where it keeps feeling expansive, then it's almost like you haven't caught up to that creation yet. Like, you need to kind of keep creating more space so that more stuff can flow through you, so that the bigger ideas can actually come to you and you can actually, like, move on them and, you know, put them out into the world, and they'll be successful there, because you've got that capacity, if you like, to kind of hold the energy that it takes to create those bigger things too. So I think that's what I've definitely been looking at this past week, actually, just some of the ideas that Nat and I are talking about for the Infinite Me, and where we're looking to take it, like an idea that we're working on now to, you know, maybe launch in the next few weeks. And it does it does mean creating more inner space. That's what it feels like for me. So I've had to be putting a lot of focus on that this week, because I could feel the ego really taking over with busyness, like, and oh, this is happening, I've got to do this still. And it's just like, no, I need to create more space for this to come through, because it won't take off to the degree that we feel it feels true. Like, it definitely feels like it's a knowingness that this is being called for, like, you know, it's coming through us. But I can see 100% where I'll hijack it if I don't create the space. Like, I'm fully aware of, I can already see little things creeping in, kind of going, okay, I can see where this is going if I don't create the space. Like, and keep putting my focus back on the feeling that wants to come through. It doesn't matter how it unfolds from here, like what that looks like, or the timing of it, or anything. Like, but the more I keep falling into the little ego stories, you know, which has happened a little bit this week. I've just been seeing different things and little distractions coming up. I was like, oh, there's those distractions again. When I don't put the focus on the true feeling again, it's like the time story that comes back up for me again. Like, it's that's been happening a little bit this week, and just sort of noticing that and keep redirecting. So I was like, okay, I've got to create more space for this. Like, this thing needs a lot of space. I need to keep putting my attention on that and doing the work to create the space. That to keep flowing through, keep the channel open, if you like. Yeah,
it is bloody hard. Like, I've been going through it too. Like, and it feels like quite a physical process. Like, I've had a headache for the last few days, actually.
Yeah, I've been really tight. The neck and shoulders too.
And tiredness. It's like, and then you go into that bloody battle that says, oh, I'm not getting stuff done. You know, I've got the time and space right now. I should be doing stuff. And then it's just like, no, I just feel too tired, or this headache's really getting the better of me. I need to go and lie down, sort of thing. Like, and obviously lying down is getting the ego out of the way, even particularly if you fall asleep.
Yes.
So that things can shift. But it feels like a real physical shift for me right now. So there's a lot of energy that's shifting around old belief systems. In my horoscopes the other day with 𝐲𝐻 Guru, who does the intuitive horoscopes we get each day, it was all about rules. And so obviously I've set up a lot of rules for myself in my world, probably accentuated by being in the policing structure as well. So that sort of just layers on top another bunch of rules.
Yeah.
And it sort of said you don't have to work through all the different rules and stuff you've got, but if you acknowledge that you actually have a lot of rules in your life, then it will be enough to start sort of dissipating those things and actually bring them to light so that they can release. And so I have, like, I've just had this feeling for such a long time, and Jodie's picked up on it many times before. I was like, you've got a lot of rules going on, sort of thing. I was like, yeah, I know, but I don't know how to let them go. Like, they're just like such a construct that sits there. But I have been seeing them more, like, from that, from reading the horoscope. It's like, okay, I don't actually have to individually go through each of the rules. I can just acknowledge that as a general collective, there is a bunch of them there.
Yeah,
and I have been
bringing the awareness to it.
Yeah, and I've definitely been feeling a release of that. And it's said, funnily enough, in the horoscope that if you want to move to the next level, then, and I interpreted it to mean in the project, not necessarily just my life, that you need to address those things. So it's sort of like when you're going along doing a project, I need to plug in a minute. There's that you have to adjust to that project as well, particularly if it's a big project. Then you have to catch up to that, like you're saying. Is like you have to keep up with that creative process that's going on, and that does mean the physical form has to change. The energy in that physical form, things need to release. Old belief patterns need to be seen. So there is definitely that aspect of that creative process. The creative process isn't just out there. What's been created, it has to come from here, because that's where out there actually comes from. It comes from internally, so the internal has to shift first. So it does take a bit. Like, it's there's definitely some physical stuff. Louise was just saying there, had headaches. I'm just going to plug in.
Is it? Yeah, sure. I've had headaches and feeling drained energy-wise these last few days as well. But this morning when I woke up, I truly felt as though I had woken up. Big shift for me.
Oh, good.
Good. Yeah, excellent.
That's very cool. I guess that's always on the end of those sorts of sessions. Like, you know, it's going to last perhaps for a few days. And then, suddenly you do wake up one morning and it's not there anymore. It's like, oh, okay, that's really cool. But you've given it enough space then for it to...
if we don't buy into the stories and we give it the space to just move through us, then we do. The body releases that tension as well. Yeah, and you start to feel better. Yep,
yeah,
definitely.
and that's what it feels like. I guess that tension, that headaches and tiredness and stuff. There is that tension there because there's a tension going on between a new energy that's coming in, which is vibrating at perhaps a higher level, and an old vibration, which is the physical form, even still. And reality as it exists right now, there is that tension going on, and I do remember reading, like, if you're having headaches, and particularly these sorts of consciousness headaches, and that's what it feels like, and it does tend to sort of feel like a bit of a tension in the neck, and
I get it.
and I know you get that all the time. So it's sort of where things are still shifting between the two energy levels, sort of thing, and so it does create that tension until the body rises itself and the physical form rises.
Yes, and sometimes it's our own resistance to let go of the old stories. As much as we feel constrained by those stories, it's still hard to let them go sometimes because they're just comfortable and known. And there is that ego fear, if you like, of growing bigger, of what that might actually mean too. Sometimes we're afraid of our own power. There's that's that saying. It always gets attributed to Nelson Mandela, but I think it's actually Marianne Williamson that says it. But it's that one about we're not afraid of our
darkness.
We're not afraid of the darkness. We're actually afraid of our own light, like the power, our own internal power that we have. Like that's actually what we're truly afraid of, like of how powerful we actually are when we step into that space of love being so overwhelmingly we have an idea of what we think that is. That's the thing, like it's always going to come from this human construct of what we think that energy is, and so it feels like it's so big and we wouldn't be able to contain it, and it's probably true. If we don't create the inner space, we won't be able to contain it. Like we can't match that creative imagination, say, that's flowing through us, which is what I think I've struggled with a lot of my life, is like the big ideas. Like I've had some really big ideas coming through me and they feel so true, but I've just felt so unable to kind of carry them out here. Like, and I can see now that it is just I haven't created enough space for them to actually come through. Like there was too many stories going on, too much focus on the outside world and too much focus on the limitations, 100%, of why I couldn't create that thing, or I hadn't caught up enough yet, or I didn't have enough money yet, or didn't know enough yet. Like there was always the knowingness for me, like the knowing game, needing to learn more, need to get a bit more better at this thing, so all those things keep you stuck and keep your light small, sort of thing. So you never actually have to push yourself out, to actually experience that bigger light that we're talking about. So I
think that's it, isn't it? It's always going to be step by step, and I guess bringing it back to our topic sort of thing is like getting caught in the stories and not allowing the space to match that energy, sort of thing, like for that to come through, then that is going to feel like you're just caught in the story again, which feels like death, really, at the end of the day, like to an infinite being that has infinite energy, infinite creativity, infinite space. Then anything like that is going to feel like such limitation, and that's why you do get that tension and the frustration and all those feelings that we feel. We can see something, but you just can't seem to grasp it. It's like, oh my God, like if I could just let go of all these other bullshit that's going on, then whether that be a physical form where you're getting pulled away to different, catastrophes going on in your life type thing, like this is happening, and then someone else has got something else going on, and it just takes up so much time. And it could be just the smallest things, like you were talking about, man, on a house set, the dog needs this now. And then you just go through the day and you go, where the hell did that day just go? Like,
there you go.
And again, I feel that comes back to that absolute decision that I am going to be creating what I want to be creating. Like I want to be fully consciously creating something, a project now, and 100% into that, not being sidetracked by all this stuff in the outside world the whole time and my own bullshit. Because if you really are focused on the stuff that makes you feel alive, then all that stuff just falls away anyway, naturally. You don't actually have to sit there and process it. Like we were talking about the other day. Do we have to sit there and process all these different feelings and all the past and all that sort of stuff? No. Like if you are focused on something that's really creative, and that might mean sitting in front of the computer doing something, or you're out talking to people, or whatever you're doing for your creativity that feels true for you, then feelings will arise. Like I've definitely felt this, where you'll be watching something, and like in the process of creating something, and you'll watch something and go, oh, okay, that just really sparked something inside me type thing. Like there was a little alert.
Yes.
And you become aware of it, and it's gone within a heartbeat type thing, and you're back to doing what you're doing type thing. That's processing it in being in creativity at the same time. It can actually happen at the same time. Like your world should be, well, it does, bring everything to your awareness if you're aware enough. You don't have to go finding it. Or then sit there and process it. Your everyday life will actually bring, if you've got blockages going on, then your everyday life is presenting them over and over again.
It's true.
To be aware of it, you have to be in the now to actually see it, and then go, oh, there's that little blockage type thing. Like I see that now. And it could be something as simple as sweeping or washing up or whatever, and suddenly a feeling comes up. See something like I've done that time and time again, where I'll be sweep, like who knew that sweeping could be so enlightening type of thing. Like it's so interesting. Like I'll see the way I'm sweeping, and I was like really trying to get in there, and I was like, oh, that's a bit interesting. Is that how I'm approaching my life? Like really in there, like this. What if I actually just sort of swept that dirt that's really just sitting there right now, and I just swept it really softly instead? I wonder what happened when I did that. I was like, oh, it actually does much better. Okay, maybe I employed that sort of thought process throughout my life. So
we try too hard sometimes to get an outcome.
So Sharon, Sharon, making it harder than it actually is. Since I've started to accept myself for who I am, I really feel moving forward and leaps and bounds. It's so true, isn't it? Like it's that simple. So simple.
It is. It's like changing that story that we tell about ourselves. Like it's I think Nat posted it on the page today, actually, the quote from our friend Gazalelo that we're referencing about from Bondi Guru that does the intuitive horoscopes, and she's saying, if you keep telling yourself the same story, you're going to keep getting the same circumstances. It's like you have to shift that story of who you think you are in the world. Like you keep thinking you've got to show up that way all the time just because that's how you've shown up before, like it's kind of I was just talking to a relationship coach last night or the night before, and she was talking about she's creating a telesummit at the moment, so I was talking to her about potentially being a speaker on it kind of thing. She's a friend of one of my mentors, and she was talking about one of her clients who was having these issues with her husband, and she was feeling like really like she'd made up this whole story like around that the husband was going to let her do this certain thing that she wanted to go and do. And so the coach was saying to her also, what has your husband said about that? And she's like, oh, well, I don't know. I haven't actually asked him. Like, and she said, well, how do you know like that he won't let you do it? She goes, oh, well, I just assume that that's what he's going to think, like, and she said, so you haven't actually had a conversation with him where he said no? And she's like, oh, no. But like, I just know that's just what, he won't. So she's just like, well, can you see where you're actually like getting your own way here? Because you actually haven't even had an open conversation to ask him that question and then see what he would respond. Your whole mind has just made up this complete story. And she was getting into like a real bother about this, what the husband does and this and that, and he stops him from doing all these things, but has never actually asked him about it. But just the story just keeps running and running and running until we actually front up to it and kind of go, wow, like where did that story even come from? Like it's like, how long have I been telling myself that story for, that I need to show up that way, or I can't show up differently? It's just interesting how often we keep ourselves.
The big thing, isn't it? And I've had this conversation with Jody where she'll pull me up on something because she's done it in the past, where she might have said no in the past, say in that example. And so I've assumed that that's what she'll say again.
I've done.
But I'm not giving her the opportunity to change from that. Like her consciousness is changing, like everybody's is. Your partner's consciousness, or your business partner, or your friend, or your mum and dad, or whatever, like changing all the time, and we have to give them a chance to be different. But
we're not letting
the story on that's what they're going to do again. Then you don't give them a chance to be different.
Yeah.
So, and that's the conversation that Jodie and I have had time and time again, is like, for each other, it's like, you're not giving me a chance to be different right now because you've already assumed what I'm going to say or how I'm going to act about something. And I may not.
And we've already created the judgment based on that, you know, presumption of what we think is going to happen. We're already projecting that judgment, and that person feels that energy of it, and they don't feel like they can show up differently. I've definitely experienced that in my relationship with my husband. I see where I've created stories and where he creates stories sometimes, and it's just like, you just feel the energy of them. It just feels so contractive at times that you're not letting each other show up differently to that story, even though you might be trying to be different. It almost feels like you get pulled back into a story sometimes, especially when you're on that consciousness journey as well. Like, it is that backwards and forwards a little bit sometimes too, because you have that awareness, but you still get pulled into it. Like, it's still not you haven't broken that neural pathway, if you like, in your brain sometimes, because you've got to keep bringing your conscious awareness to that showing up different. Yeah. So. Yeah,
it's such a tough one, isn't it? You're right, Louise. Like, it is so easy to fall into that pattern, particularly with a partner, because you're with them all the time, and because it's the most intimate relationship you generally have.
Yeah.
Or it might be your parents or something like that, if you're really close to them or whatever. It's so hard to pull yourself up on it, to remember to pull yourself up on it time and time again. It's like, am I limiting this story right now? I'm the one limiting it, not the other person. And
true.
I fell for it again the other day, you know, with Jodie. Jodie always has this, you know, thought process about money type thing. And I was like, she didn't actually have it. I had it. It's like, shit, like, I've done it again. Like, I'm projecting my actual limitations onto somebody else, feeling like they were the one that had it. And I was like, it's so unfair, like, on the other person. I felt really, really bad, but I think in feeling bad was probably a good thing, because then I started to realize what I was doing.
Yes.
I felt really sad about that. And I was like, oh. And she goes, oh, it's all right. And I said, no, it's actually not. Like, I've got to stop doing this. Like, I see it now, what I'm doing. It's not good. Nothing's ever right or wrong, but I was just like, that sadness and that guilt that I was feeling, was enough to hopefully wake me up a little bit and go, okay, stop doing this then. Like, it's enough.
Yeah, just waking you up to that limitation that's you've put there in the place. Yeah, and I think, you know, in terms of the topic that we talk about, that living fully, it just feels like the more when we're in those ego stories, like we've just been talking about, it's like we're not choosing to live fully and show up fully when we're in those stories. Like, we can't be, like, we're separating ourselves whenever we're in those stories and projecting outside of ourselves on the other person or whatever's happening. You know, we're basically saying, I'm separate to the universe, I'm separate to that person over there, they're not part of my consciousness, so therefore we can't be living fully, because, you know, that definition is when you're coming from that infinite feeling and that infinite space. So we're already, you know, just negating that by having the stories outside of us. So
and that will feel like death, and death to an infinite being is somehow being constricted, somehow being limited. It's going to feel like death. From the ego side, the ego will do everything to survive. So you've got that constant battle that's going to go on inside, and we just have to keep bringing ourselves back to the truth. That's why these conversations, that's why this sort of this type of work, I'll say that, is so important to remember every single day, because it's so easy to get caught off track again.
Yeah, definitely.
Until it becomes such a habit to not feel this way, or you get sucked in and you see it straight away, that gap closes, no, I see this again. This is the game I always play. I'm back here again. And then it can dissipate over time. I just wanted to say hi to Anne, who said hi to you. She's been here.
Oh, hello. Yes, Anne is from Jennifer Hoff's work that I've did flight school. Yes. So hi, Anne.
Yeah, so you'd come in like...
You must be up very early, Anne.
40 minutes ago, so I didn't...
Anne lives in Oregon, so she must be up very early. So.
That is early. Well done.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
I think everybody's probably had that feeling that you're talking about, that death feeling, like when you become so aware of like the ego stories that you're telling yourself, but you're also so aware of the creative, ideas moving through you, and you just want to do what you love to do. Like you feel that true feeling, but the stories feel like they hold you back, or the circumstances, or the whatever. Like it does feel like death to your soul. Like, and everyone's probably had that feeling at times where you actually feel like you're dying inside. Like, and when we don't let that creativity out, that's actually what happens. We get anxiety, we get depression, we get body stuff shows up when we don't actually let that creativity, when we don't match up to that creative feeling, like we're not being that channel for it, like, because we get the blockages do show up like physically sometimes in our body, because the ego is like that blockage, if you like, and then it shows up physically in our body to kind of show us where we're limiting the creativity moving through us.
Yep, I guess that's it, isn't it? You're either going to make the ego stories feel alive, and your soul's going to feel like dying.
Yes.
Like of what you just said, there's so much frustration there. You see the potential, you see what is, and you're just not allowing it. So you've given this power too much power, and it's taking over right now. Or you make the decision to go the other way, and you feel alive, do stuff just because you feel like doing it in the moment. There is no agenda, and you feel 100% alive because there's just joy there, and there's openness, and there's space, and there's creativity, and there's flow, and all those things that you love. Yeah. And the ego is going to feel like it's dying.
Yeah.
So, but you get to choose which one you want to go down.
Yeah.
Always. And it's always a choice.
Keep choosing, and the more we choose it, the more it feels like we come to know as that natural way of being. So it becomes natural, we wake up to what our natural way of being is when we keep making that choice every moment. Yeah, checking back in all the time.
And maybe the best question to ask is this the most expansive I could be right now? Is this the most expansive decision I could make?
Yes.
Because that will put you into the infinite space, like it has to. That's where the infinite lives, in the expansion. So
yes.
Always trying to expand.
Yep, definitely.
Anne's going back to, she's in bed. She's going back to sleep. Sleep on that.
That's a good idea.
Very cool. Awesome. Well, thank you, ladies, for being here. We've had Louise and Sharon and Anne in house live with us.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, that's really cool. Thank you so much. And pop into the comments. What makes you feel alive? What could you be doing more of? What's so expansive for you that you actually do feel that sense of infinite expansion, not story expansion and ego expansion, but what actually does make you feel alive, and can you do more of it in your life to really consciously bring that into your space?
Yes. Now can you create more space to catch up to the creativity moving through you?
Yeah. Definitely.
Yep.
Very cool. All right. Well, we'll see you all again tomorrow.
Yes. Thanks for joining.
All right.
Bye.
Well, now you're alive, infinite beings, you.